Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show. All right, guys, it is July 10th, so we are like less than 3 weeks away from the start of NFL training camp, which means we are in full swing fantasy football mode, and it is time for me to ramp up the content because I want to help a ton of you guys win your leagues this year. That's my mission. That's what I'm out here to do. So if you find yourself watching my channel often, for whatever reason you haven't subscribed, just go ahead and go down, hit that subscribe button below. It helps the channel tremendously. I don't like asking for it all the time, but sometimes I do need to remind people because sometimes, honestly, people just forget to subscribe to channels. I do it when I watch my favorite content creators, so make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button below. It goes a very, very long way as far as helping my channel grow and helping me continue to do this throughout the season and off season every single year. So please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you do find my content helpful. But without any further ado, I'm going to get right into my top 12 overall rankings. And I'm going to start right here with the very first player on my list, Cooper Kupp. Now, this is a guy that we know is probably going to lead the league in targets, okay? And if you look at the past two seasons, he has led the league in fantasy points per game in back-to-back years. He had 25.9 fantasy points per game in his anomaly freaky, crazy season back in 2021 where he was pretty much the best fantasy wide receiver that we've ever seen. He had over 22 fantasy points per game last year before going down with his injury, which was again first in the NFL, even more so than Justin Jefferson, who had one of the best wide receivers seasons that we've ever seen last year. So this is a dude who will probably lead the league in fantasy points per game again, because if you look at last season, the Rams offense was pretty much as bad as they possibly could have been, right? And Cooper Kupp was still putting up the best wide receiver numbers in the entire league before he went down with his injury. So imagine if this offense can bounce back at all, even to being average. I mean, if he could be this good in a bad, like terrible, bottom 8 overall offense in the NFL, maybe worse. Imagine if this offense could be even just average this year. And what we have to keep in mind is that last year the Rams started the season without their field stretcher, without their deep threat Van Jefferson. Now they're starting the season with a healthy Van Jefferson, a healthy Cam Akers, who is, a little bit further removed from his Achilles injury. And they also drafted Puka Nacua. I mean, there's actually some weapons in this offense. I think this offense actually has some sneaky upside, and I think they're going to be a lot more efficient than they were last year. And like I said, if they could even just be average, Cooper Kupp's ceiling is by far and away higher than any other wide receiver in fantasy. He has the best floor-ceiling combination. He should absolutely be the consensus 101 pick in any format. Next player on my list is going to be Justin Jefferson. Now, Justin Jefferson is a guy who, last year he was the best player in fantasy, right? So, 21.7 fantasy points per game, over 1,800 receiving yards. The dude saw a 29% target share in his offense. I mean, this dude is absolutely force-fed the ball. Now, obviously, there's some other receiving threats in this offense now, so you got to figure that the target volume might be a little bit more, a little bit down for Justin Jefferson as opposed to what it was last year, because they do have an elite pass-catching tight end now in T.J. Hawkinson, and they drafted Jordan Addison, a very good, wide receiver that's going to command a decent amount of target volume himself. So, if the target share for Justin Jefferson went down to 26 or 27% this year, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think that he's going to have nearly as high of a target share as Cooper Kupp. But the thing about Van Jefferson in comparison to Cooper Kupp is he is in a way better offense, right? So, at the end of the day, Justin Jefferson is going to have some pretty darn good touchdown upside. He's going to have a very, very high weekly ceiling, one of the highest weekly ceilings in fantasy, due to his ability to get open downfield, his big play ability, his run out to the catch ability. This dude's one of the most talented players in this entire league. He is an awesome option in the first round from pretty much any pick in the draft. I'm taking Cooper Kupp with the 101, but if you wanted to take Justin Jefferson at the 101, I don't blame you. Next player on my list is going to be Christian McCaffrey. Now, this is a guy that, we know that he averages somewhere close to 7.5 to 8 targets a game and has done so throughout his career. In fact, there were years in Carolina where he was averaging like 9 targets a game. This dude is an absolute target hog out of the backfield. Now, what I think a lot of people don't understand about this backfield is that Elijah Mitchell is going to cut in to his rushing upside a little more than I think people think. He's not going to be, the Christian McCaffrey of old in Carolina where he was getting, 30-plus touches a game. The volume is going to be down a little bit in comparison to those years in Carolina, but what he has to make up for that, and probably more than make up for that, is way higher touchdown upside. I mean, he was on Panthers teams that were not very good. Now he's on a team that should be one of the higher scoring teams in the league with all their offensive weapons. His touchdown upside is tremendously high. And so the fact that he's getting a lot more high value touches will easily make up for the fact that he's not getting as many overall touches. So I still like him to easily be the running back 1 this year. I think he should absolutely be the first running back off the board because of his ridiculously high ceiling. There are a few red flags like the age and the injury history, but the ceiling is so high that he could be the most polarizing player in fantasy this season. It is quite possible. And so you just cannot pass up on this ceiling, and he should be the first running back off the board. Next player on my list is going to be Jamar Chase. Now, Jamar Chase is a guy who, you look at last season, he was third in the league in red zone targets despite missing 5 games. He went up to all the way to having a 29% target share from having an only 23% target share in his rookie year. And we all saw what he did in his rookie season with only a 23% target share. So considering the fact that they're force-feeding him the ball now and they're force-feeding him the ball within the red zone, and he's got one of the best quarterbacks in the league, plays in one of the highest scoring offenses in the league, has tremendous big playability. Everything is going for Jamar Chase. He has a tremendously high weekly ceiling, quite possibly the highest weekly ceiling in fantasy, right up there with Tyreek Hill. So, I love Jamar Chase to be an absolute beast this season. He should be one of the very first picks off the board, and he could be the wide receiver 1. Next player on my list is going to be Tyreek Hill. Now, people are worried about, okay, will Jalen Waddle cut into his targets? No. We saw it last year. Jalen Waddle's not going to cut into his targets. They force feed these 2 wide receivers. It's a very top-heavy offense as far as just forcing their wide receiver 1 and 2. Tua, yes, he had some concussions last year, but we've seen a lot of quarterbacks get concussions over the years and still play an entire NFL career. I think people are a little bit overly concerned when it comes to, Tua, having a concussion. Any quarterback can get injured, right? So he's going to be starting the season at 100%. Tua should be just 100% good to go. I love the Miami Dolphins offense this year. I think they're going to be one of the highest scoring offenses in the NFL. We know that Tyreek Hill can pretty much take the ball from anywhere and take it to the house because he has the best speed at the wide receiver position of any player in the entire NFL. He's incredibly fast. He's a tremendous athlete and a great playmaker. This is a guy who can give you probably the highest weekly ceiling in fantasy. At the wide receiver position, the floor ceiling combination is awesome for this guy. I love him as being one of the first overall picks off the board. My second running back is going to be Bichon Robinson. Now, this is a guy who got drafted into a team that was the second most rushing volume team in the entire NFL last season. The Falcons ran the ball more than almost any team in the NFL. Now they drafted Bichon Robinson as an overall, top 10 pick in the draft. He got taken 8 overall in the NFL draft. Running backs don't command that kind of draft capital anymore. So considering the fact that the Falcons were confident enough to take a running back with a top 8 pick overall just shows how big they are on Bichon Robinson. This is going to be one of the most run-heavy offenses in the entire league. Bichon Robinson is going to get all the opportunity in the world as far as rushing out of the backfield, pass catching. He's really not going to have any competition for touches with Tyler Algier. He might very well get more volume than any running back in the entire league. So he needs to be one of the first running backs off the board. Next player on my list is going to be Garrett Wilson. Now, Garrett Wilson, I'm going to have him higher than a lot of people are going to have him in their rankings. This is a guy who is an absolute monster. He had over 1,100 receiving yards last year with a bunch of nobody quarterbacks throwing him the ball. He literally had some of the worst quarterback play in the entire NFL and had over 1,100 receiving yards, and that was as a rookie. We know that these players tend to break out in their second season at the wide receiver position. Now you give him Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is talking highly of him, saying he's one of the better wide receivers that he's ever worked with. This guy is going to absolutely explode. He has the upside to be the overall wide receiver 1, and a lot of times he's slipping to either the back end of round 1 or even as far as the middle of round 2. So you're getting great value for this guy, considering the fact that he could smash his ADP even though you're taking him early. So I love Garrett Wilson this season. Next player on my list is going to be Tony Pollard. Now, Tony Pollard, I think right up there with Christian McCaffrey, has the highest touchdown upside in the entire league at the running back position. I made a Tony Pollard rant video about 3 days ago talking about how people were making these false claims about him not being a true workhorse and everything like that. And they don't really have any backing as to why. They just say it. It's just like a trend in fantasy to say that Tony Pollard isn't a true workhorse, but it makes absolutely no sense. He's the exact same size as Bichon Robinson. He's shown nothing but extreme efficiency since being in the league. He had 5.2 yards per carry last year, 5.5 yards per carry the year before that. This dude's incredibly efficient. He's a big play waiting to happen. He's a threat in the passing game, and he's in a Dallas Cowboys offense that puts tons of points on the board. He had 12 touchdowns last year despite really not even being used at all until week 7 and splitting a backfield for the majority of the season. So this is a guy who has tremendously high touchdown upside. He literally has the possibility to score 20 touchdowns in this offense this year. This dude is going to be an absolute beast. He needs to go off the board in the first round as one of the first running backs. Next player on my list is going to be Stefan Diggs. This is a guy who plays for the Buffalo Bills. He has Josh Allen throwing him the ball. What more do you need to know? He's the number 1 threat in the offense. Now, I think that Dalton Kincaid is going to draw a lot more target share this season as a rookie. more so than people think. So that could cut into Diggs' target share a little bit. Gabe Davis is obviously a wide receiver that's going to get some targets, but Stefan Diggs is still probably going to see close to 10 targets a game. He's going to be an absolute target hog. This team does not run the ball. All they do is drop back and sling the ball down the field. So, that's the exact kind of offense where you want your number one wide receiver, right? So Stefan Diggs, number one wide receiver in an offense that just slings the ball down the field like crazy. They're gonna be a high-scoring offense too, so the touchdown upside is there. We've seen him be nothing but absolutely dominant since coming over to the Buffalo Bills. This dude is an absolute monster with one of the best young quarterbacks in the league, and Josh Allen throwing him the ball. He needs to go off the board in the first round. Next player on my list is going to be Jonathan Taylor. Now, Jonathan Taylor, what I really like about Jonathan Taylor this year and why I think he's going to bounce back is because he has a mobile quarterback, and we know that running backs that have mobile quarterbacks typically have way better yards per carry efficiency because teams have to account for, Anthony Richardson running the ball. When they have to account for things like that, obviously the running back is going to have way better yards per carry efficiency. And I think this offense is actually going to be pretty decent this year. So Jonathan Taylor will actually have some touchdown upside where he really didn't last year because the offense wasn't efficient at all. The offense should be significantly more efficient this year with Anthony Richardson coming in to help things. No offense to a late career Matt Ryan, but he just didn't really have anything left. So Anthony Richardson coming in should help Jonathan Taylor as far as his yards per carry efficiency and his touchdown upside. So I like Jonathan Taylor to have a huge bounce-back season, and I think he's good enough to go off the board in the first round. Next player on my list is going to be Ramondre Stevenson. Now, this is a guy who last season was third in the league in targets behind only Austin Eckler and Christian McCaffrey. So, we got a guy here that is quite possibly going to lead the league in overall targets out of the backfield. It's totally possible. Eckler's target share is going to be down this year with all their wide receivers. McCaffrey could lead the league in targets. You never know. But I think Ramondre has a very good chance to lead the entire NFL in targets out of the backfield at the running back position, especially considering the fact that as of right now, the Patriots still really don't have any wide receivers. I mean, Juju's their best wide receiver. Ramondre Stevenson should see a crazy target share this season. He's going to dominate PPR formats because of this, and he's been incredibly efficient in his career, averaging 5 yards per carry last year. So the dude's incredibly efficient from a yards per carry efficiency standpoint. He's going to see a ton of targets. This dude has everything going for him. I love Ramondre enough so to draft him late in the first round. Next and final player on my list is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown playing in the Lions offense. I mean, look, the Lions are projected to be one of the better teams in the NFL this year. So their offense is going to be putting a lot of points on the board. We know that Jared Goff can lead a very good offense if he has the right kind of weapons around him. We saw it in his years with the Rams. We saw flashes of it last year. There were weeks where, this team was putting 40-plus points on the board, and Amon-Ra St. Brown would absolutely go off. And we have to keep in mind that last year he was playing hobbled for most of the season when he got injured early in the year. So coming back at 100%, this dude's going to be absolutely awesome. He's been nothing but awesome since getting unleashed late in 2021, where he absolutely dominated and was one of the best wide receivers in the league for the last 5 weeks of the season. And then the first 5 weeks of the season last year before he got hurt, he was one of the best wide receivers in fantasy again. So this is a dude who has just crazy efficiency, crazy upside, crazy touchdown upside. He has everything going for him. I think he's good enough to go off the board in the first round. All right, guys. Appreciate you tuning into the video. Hope this video helped. Catch you later.